All right, so first time at Top Golf. A little fun in the sun with these two. I'm really good at putt-putt, but this whole going yard stuff, oh, there we go. I'm gonna try to get to this one. There's actually one closer. I'm gonna try to get to that one. Emza. She just crushed that.
All right, Steve. It's all on you.
They have to go over the white flag.
Oh, killed it. No pressure, Steve. With that? Oh, that's gonna go in the longest one.
Hey! Let's go!
Watch out.
Watch out, Tiger. Who says bodybuilders don't have talent?
Right?
Clearly, they don't know what they're talking about. So the results are in. And what's the final score?
96, 76, 38. Winner.
I suck. It's fine. Bright and early, Friday morning.
Coming to see you, John.
We're packing up, heading off to San Antonio to see Mr. J3. We're on our way. Here we come.
6 hours later.
We're here at the home of Olympian John Jewett. And wait a second, I think I recognize this guy. Is that him? Wow, no way. So before we dive into this session, I wanted to show you all the layout here in San Antonio and give you a quick introduction to the guests that we're there to train with. Our good friend, our coach, Mr. John Jewett. He's an IFBB Pro bodybuilder in the 212 weight class, holds a master's degree in nutrition. He's also a registered dietitian and a certified strength and conditioning specialist through the National Strength and Conditioning Association. This past year, John took his first pro win at the Tampa Pro in the 212 class and was eligible to compete in his first Olympia that same year. He stepped on stage and finished 4th in the world. And at this visit, he's currently in prep for this year's Olympia later on in December. So we were extremely excited to get down there to train with John, and I'll let him take over what we're doing.
Well, welcome everyone to the Muscle Factory.
Yes.
It was good having you down here, Steve, for this session. And luckily you landed on a push session, which has been one of my favorite days for a while. I have been tweaking around with this day quite a bit. And you came down on it was a strange setup for me because this is not my typical push day setup at all. I usually have been doing like a chest compound, shoulder compound, and tricep compound off the bat. But this was like the couple weeks where I switched to just doing, this was a shoulder emphasis day and tricep emphasis. So I had just a shoulder compound and then a tricep compound. So I started off just doing with it's like about a 75-degree overhead press, or if you want to call it an incline press. But for me, this angle's pretty safe for my shoulders. If I do like strict overhead pressing, it really starts irritating my rotator cuff. So I just kind of work within my active range for the movement. So that's why I picked that angle for my overhead press.
Right.
And my setup on this one was just we were keep building up and warming up to get up to a few top sets, which I set a range for this one. So I wanted to get 3 sets within the 5 to 10 rep range. And that first set, starting at the top end, had like 10 reps, then staying around the same weight and just letting the reps drop down from there. And then, of course, adjusting the load if we needed to stay within that rep range target.
Right.
So like we were going maybe like hit 10 reps, then they might drop down to 8, then you might drop down close to that 5 rep mark. Or if it drops sooner, like you had 10 reps, then 5 reps, it's like, okay, well, let's adjust the load for that third set.
Right.
And move from there. But what was interesting training with everyone is that we all had like different drop-off points.
Yeah,
right?
we did. Yeah, definitely did.
Like you don't have much drop-off. Luke had a little bit more than everyone, and I was kind of like in the middle there. So
yeah.
I think it just shows like just how we execute differently. It might even go into like fiber type, because I've had some studies on just in different genetic components, and those some might have more type 1 fiber type or type 2. So you might have like a quicker fatiguing and less regaining of that strength from like set to set.
Right.
So I don't know, Steve, maybe you have more type 1 fiber type.
Hey,
We don't know.
Yeah,
We
we
don't know.
have to dig into that. Busting out the old soccer genetic line that I got going. So maybe I'm still an athlete. I'm not washed up, but no, this was actually my first time doing this specific movement. And I remember you coaching me up as far as setup goes. Like typically what I tend to do when I'm in that overhead position is I try to arch back and I lock my shoulder blades down, where this one was kind of a little bit more rib cage down, core braced, let the shoulder blades glide and press up into, like, I felt it more in my delt, as opposed to typically when I arch back like that, get a lot more chest. And I know you're aiming for that target area, like the upper chest, front delt area to build up on this movement.
Yeah, so it's like that whole top line, if you want to call it the top line. So like the upper clavicular area in the front delt. So the setup is not your typical incline press, and like the grip is a little bit narrower to kind of let those elbows glide closer to the torso. But yeah, contracting down on like the transverse abdominis, just to make sure you're actually moving at the shoulder joint and not just trying to find that range of motion out of just bringing the scaps back. That's been an issue for me, like gaining range of motion by moving my torso around versus like gaining the range of motion by actually letting the shoulder travel. And that's how I've got into a lot of issues with like some shoulder injuries and stuff. So
right. Yeah, exactly. And you've shared a lot of your rehab movements, which have been really cool to see, as far as the poundage that we put ourselves under in training, and as hard as you do train, keeping longevity as a top thing to chase after as well. You don't just walk in and, okay, top set, here we go. Like watching you go through your warm up with the foam roller, with the new fit. Is it new fit or newbie? How do you say it?
It's new fit is the business, but newbie is like the EMS machine.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah.
I think, a point on that you're making too, like longevity within this is like point A to point B matters, like for what we're doing. So all of our movements are like that 2-3 second eccentric controlled, and being very deliberate pushing into the concentric phase. So trying to be very mindful of the muscles that we are intending to train.
Yeah, exactly. So now we're on to the close grip press.
Yeah, so we hit our shoulder compound move for the day, moving into a tricep compound. So doing Smith machine, close grip bench press. And I've been favoring the Smith machine. Probably like, why is everyone on the Smith machine? One, I usually train alone, so I can safely go within this movement. I don't have to have someone lift me off, or if something was to happen, I can rack it quickly. Also, I think the more stabilized you can make a movement, the better you can apply tension within your tendon muscle group, right? So if you're having to stabilize a barbell, maybe your stabilizers are giving out, or you won't be able to take that set as far as if you're a little bit more isolated within some type of machine.
Right. And when you set yourself up for this, I know because it's a little challenging. I remember Luke kind of feeling it a little bit more in his chest, and we were focusing a little bit more on tricep emphasis. Like you can see where the bar is coming down on my ribs.
I kind of scooted up a little bit further, and keeping my elbows tight in towards my sides. That's just off of my body alignment. But for your setup with this, what do you think is the best kind of markings to look at to make sure you're hitting that target area?
Yeah, so ideally letting the elbows glide against the torso somewhat to an extent. Um, you'll see like with some of us, like I have limitations where like I can't tuck them really hard because like your lats just are gonna like bring your elbows out some. But I like to try to keep my elbow and wrist right underneath each other, so you have good driving mechanics. You will get more tricep emphasis if you go like a lot narrower, and that elbow will come out more. However, it makes it pretty uncomfortable on the wrist, like going super narrow. So for a lot of us, we're like, slightly wider than shoulder width. I think that's a good balance between everything, like keeping wrist in a mechanical good spot, and then not overtaxing that joint, but still getting enough tricep emphasis and range of motion.
Right. Yeah.
And I hit the same. We hit the same amount of sets, so we're working up to like 3 main work sets on this one. And I did bump the rep range up on this, like to 8 to 12. So trying to hit your top set of like 12 reps, then the reps will just drop down from fatigue with the subsequent sets.
Right. Keep the same weight.
Yeah, I should mention, like, this isn't my normal setup. So usually it's a top set of like 6 to 10 reps, then 1 back off set. And I've gone back to that because actually within the next week of doing this, man, connective tissue wise was really taking a beating doing so many sets of the same movement.
Yeah.
And the volume was just too high in that sense. And I just got way overly fatigued. So going back to just doing 2 sets in a compound and having a few extra lifts saved me more. So that's what I had to switch back to. But I think for anyone, like you can really make a push day very customizable. It's not just such a stagnant plan, but you put in like what you need for your movements. So your analysis of like, do you need chest or delt or tricep? And that might be your primary movement you start with. So if you have really bad tries, maybe you should be starting with a close grip bench, and maybe your shoulders are awesome. So you could put your overhead compound, later in the session.
Right.
So move around your compound moves and pick the ones that you connect well with, but then also is for your needs.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, and you, if I remember correctly, you were playing around with 3 low days back at this period as well. So your energy going into these sessions, I'm sure, is factor that in as well. Yeah,
I gotta be honest. My whole setup when you came down, it was like not ideal, and we really ironed it out afterwards. So after this, it's like, okay, I'm not doing these 3 sets within each movement, and I added in an extra rest day, and then my nutrition started pairing with my training, not just running random low days on whether it's training or an off day. So everything got much more optimal. So just once you do that, even at the advanced level, you got to think outside the box and sometimes try some different things. I'm open to it, but at the same time, you need to be able to analyze and know when you should maybe be changing it back. But we go for things, and sometimes we mess them up, even in being like more advanced. So it happens.
Well, you all figured it out, and I'm glad to see it. But so now we're on to the next movement, the lateral machine raise, and you can see you're really helping me feel this movement with just putting your fingers there on my side delts. I connected to that movement almost instantly.
It makes a big difference. It's just sometimes hard to feel a side delt. Same with rear delts. And sometimes just putting some tension with fingers to a muscle, it can change someone's movement pattern right away to like immediately engage with it.
Yeah.
So on that one, I think we did 3 sets with a higher rep range. So like I think it was 12 to 18, something within that.
Yeah, it was higher.
That was our isolation for side delt. And then when we moved into like an isolation for pecs, doing this pec deck fly.
Yeah.
And on this one, still 3 sets. So the idea was I'd have my compounds for shoulders and triceps, but still have some higher rep isolation work for pecs. And same thing with this one. It was kind of like bring on this one, like you said earlier, like bring the chest up. We weren't doing that in the incline press, but on this one, we did, to make sure like we have that humerus kind of running in line with the pec fibers as you're reaching that peak contraction.
Right. Yeah. And one thing that you helped me with this as well is thinking about driving my elbows together, and my shoulders aren't rolling forward. It's more focusing here, as opposed to like what you said in the setup on the incline. It was a little bit different. So, and these were, you know, for me, testing out the equipment here, first time running through a lot of these movements, I lit up. Between that and the Animal Pump Pro, and then obviously the environment here with you and Luke and Muscle Factory, it was amazing. So, so now we're done with the chest and shoulder portion of the session, and we're moving into the tricep. And the prime handles here just groove so smoothly. And I know you've been battling a lot of issues with your elbow and your wrist, and just making your tricep movements not be so painful. So how does that work for you?
Yeah, so like really every movement pattern I'm trying to pick is trying to align up joints to be as natural as possible. And you know, a lot of like push downs, you use like a rope for a push down, and you get towards like locking it out, it's like you just don't have good strength there, and your shoulders are starting to roll over. So the prime handles do a great job at being able to line up the shoulder, wrist, and elbow, and allow you just to have more of a natural feel of locking out the elbow.
Right.
And the prime handles are nice because it kind of allows a little bit more natural wrist movement too. But the idea here was to be close enough to the cable to right about 90 degrees, we get peak tension. And then it kind of lets off, because you see like that cable gets really close to your face and chest.
Yep.
So it's getting in line with the arm. So you kind of lose some tension towards the bottom when it's the hardest part of the lift. So what we have is like matching a resistance curve with the strength curve of the movement. So you can get good tension throughout the full range with a very ergonomic setup with the prime handles.
Yeah. No, I love these. Again, this is my first time using these specific handles. So I connected right away off of it. And like what you mentioned with the ropes, sometimes what tends to happen is people just roll forward with them.
Yeah.
And, you know, dual ropes help, but with these handles, everything just felt like what you mentioned. The lineup was completely natural. And then obviously, you know, the last rep face right there is just beautiful to look at. That's the goal. And then we finished it up with calves, and that was it. So you throw calves on push just because of, you know, being fatigued from your lower body sessions themselves, I'm sure.
Yeah, so calves can easily get tacked on to lower body at the very end, and it's kind of like sloppy fourths almost, like, you know, that you're fried after leg day, and it's like, oh yeah, I'll just throw calves here, and usually people, you know, kind of half-ass them. I really like training calves, and I want big calves, so I put them at the end of a push day while I'm still not as fatigued.
Yeah, we did that, and it was I think it was a work set and then a drop set.
Yeah,
and
we did like 2 drops. I think like three sets total work-wise.
Yeah, it was a hell of a session, and you know, Luke and I were just incredibly grateful to meet up with you and spend some time with you and Renee and Ashley and Mike we met up with later on. So definitely looking forward to next time down there in San Antonio, my man. And, you know, thank you again for taking us through that session.
Yeah, it was a good one. Next time we'll have to do legs or back or something different.
Yes, sign me up. I'm there. All right. Thanks a lot, John.
Okay.
So far, Texas has really blown me away with the impressive gas stations, and you always appreciate a good grocery store as well. Plenty of stuff to choose from. We're at HEB. This is the spot here in Texas. Post training with John, We're picking up stuff for the hotel. Luke's grabbing some of our chicken. What we got? Chicken, rice cakes, banana, bag of rice or microwave rice.
We got peanut butter in the car.
We got peanut butter in the car. There you go. Boxing them off.